All right, thank you very much, Criselda. Certainly, what a moment. And we're talking about this moment with our guest just off air, talking about how big of a moment this is. And Mbuso Khoza Blaine is a cultural practitioner, someone who has walked the road with Buthelezi, and someone who has really, who prides himself in culture. And for you, Mr. Khoza, let's talk about, you're watching these visuals right now. You knew, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi very well. Let's talk about that relationship.
Our relationship with Prince Mangosuthu starts during the times of King Shaka, when Umngangelele was a mastermind behind the Zulu kingdom around the battlefield, who is a father to Umnyamana who is a father to Umkhandumba is a father to Umachole is a father to Prince Mangosuthu. So some of my forefathers fought battles with him, especially Unchingwayo Mahole during the Battle of Isandrana. But beyond that, his mother, Princess Makoko, was a sister to Ukusapeta, a daughter of King Dinizulu, who got married to Inkosi Umehlwana at home. So from there we got so connected, and especially when I was growing up, I used to attend all these ceremonies, King Shaka ceremony, Inkosi Umhlanga. So I was absorbing this knowledge until we got a moment to sit down, and I became like a son to him.
Mr. Khoza, if you will, put into context what we saw yesterday and what we're seeing today in terms of the rituals that were performed. Bongiwe and I were at Prince Buthelezi's home yesterday, and we saw the cortege coming into the home, and the Anglican Archbishop Thabo Makgoba of Cape Town ushering in the cortege and singing the Our Father.
Yes.
How did Prince Buthelezi balance that of tradition as well as religion?
Hey, it's so interesting because he was like full on a Zulu prime minister and who loved his culture, and his mother, Princess Makoko, was this, prolific singer, a luthier who could play a string bow. And on the other hand, it's interesting that in 1879 the Zulus were fighting with the Anglicans because that was English, But it's amazing how he made peace with that, and also irrationality in understanding the message of Jesus and his love of his culture. I think he was a very, very intellectual man and a very spiritual man.
Interesting, you talk about Princess Makoko, the fact that she also used to read the Bible. She finished it twice,
cover to cover.
Yeah.
And she never went to school.
Do you think that's where he also got a bit of the influence to have that aspect of his life?
Definitely, because Princess Makoko used to attend the Adventist, Seventh-day Adventist. This is why you would hear a song, "Oh, namso phezu konke isizwe sizakucinywa wena ongacimekio osihawukele okhonzwa isizwe sonke semagumbini omane esiwo phambi kwakho sithi uyingcwele uyingcwele." He would cry when Umntwana was listening to that. So I think you are right when you're saying the influence of Princess Makoko in Prince Mangosuthu's life is really huge, simply because I once had a moment with him in 2017. He said, "I used to sleep on my mother's voice singing and wake up to my mother's voice singing." And Princess Makoko was a very spiritual woman. They say he was a praise singer. So when King is sitting like this with the regiments, there used to be two praise singers, others ululating. They say she would wait for all of them to start, but as soon as she starts, she will be the last man standing on that stage.
And there was even an opera written about her, isn't it? Nzilikazi Khumalo's opera.
She taught herself how to vamp on organ,
yes,
and a piano. Like, she could listen, she could play a mouth harp.
Yeah.
Istolotolo. I mean, where's my stolotolo? I was going to show you now. So she was a very powerful woman. And another
there
thing.
You go.
Oh,
there you go.
If you can hold this for
Bring
me.
it. I'll hold it.
Yes. Yeah. So this is an instrument. Oh, so this is the kind of music.
I feel like saying continue, just a bit more. Continue just a bit
Yes.
more, because these are the sounds playing that a lot of us grew up listening to, and
Even Matosini, yes.
we grew up with that, and it speaks also to that part that you were talking about, that he also was fully the Amazulu traditional prime
Yes.
minister, fully the leader of the IFP, fully a member of the church, fully a father, and all of that. It speaks to a man who did not do things with half measures.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at him. Even his understanding of the rituals. There are things that Mtwana would not do because he understood the culture from back to back. And I remember when we were sitting down, telling me that there are people that you are working with, Khoza, but just that we don't see them. And he laughed. It was last year, I think in November. And then what happened? He said, "Can you and I go to Ulundi and unveil a memorial stone for Mnyamana Kanqengelele and Uchimwayo?" Oh, the sound.
It speaks to the live coverage. They expect anything at any moment.
Yes.
As we keep a close eye on the cortege, it's not that far now from entering the stadium. We're told that the coffin has just arrived. We've got eyes on it as well. A number of dignitaries already in place. Thousands of people are here. And we've seen it, Bongiwe, from yesterday, those lining the streets to say their final goodbyes. And it is both of sorrow as well as gratitude. That's the sentiment I got.
And to listen to some of them, talk about the man they knew very closely. Whether we knew him as an IFP leader, as whatever hat he would have worn at the time, they call him a community leader. They call him somebody that they could go to and address some of their concerns. Earlier on, we were hearing of conversations of him receiving calls about cattle being stolen, whether Kwanongoma, wherever, and he dispatches his team immediately to go and deal with that particular crisis. So quite an interesting, recollection of history. And Mr. Khoza, one of the things that you talk about is the importance of culture and where he would then fit himself. But I wonder with what is happening right now when it comes to the Amazulu nation,
Yes.
what then becomes the way forward?
I think the king will have to make a decision, I think, after following all the cultural processes, and then from there we shall hear from what the kingdom has in store for us. Yeah, just that with the challenges that the Zulu kingdom is, all the kingdoms, with the modernity, I'm interested in seeing how the Zulu nation is going to move forward now with regards to these modernity and nuances, because life is no longer like before.
And he's been traditional prime minister since '54, and he was, he said he told King Goodwill Zwelithini that, look, you have a right to choose your own prime minister, but King Goodwill Zwelithini decided to keep him on. How do you think he performed in that role?
I think he excelled, and one needs to understand why he became a prime minister. Nqengelele was a mastermind in the battlefield behind the King Shaka era. Umnyamana was a prime minister during the Battle of Isandlwana, during the King Tojang reign, and his grandfather, Umkhandum, who is a father to his father Machol, was also a warrior fighting at the Battle of Isandlwana. So him becoming a Zulu prime minister is also prophetic, because King Solomon, they say, he had a meeting with his sister Princess Makoko saying, do you remember the relationship we have with the Buthelezi clan? You need to get married to Inkosi Machole so that we mend that relationship. And Princess Makoko used to say, mina lo mntu ohamba ngomzila wezinkomo nabantu, mina lo mntu ogijima okhalweni nibongiyalezela nibamtshela ukuba nyaka nasehlukana naye angazi ngiyakuzenza njani. So she was lamenting on her boyfriend, because now, exactly like when you hear about the history of Queen of Athena and Zeus, where you have to snatch wisdom, on the son that you're gonna give birth to. This is what exactly happened, because Inkosi Umatolo had so many wives. But as soon as the Princess Makoko got married, they said in isiZulu, isiphingo enkulu inkosi sizopuma kuMakoko.
And he lost his father at a very young age,
Yeah.
at 14 years old,
Yeah.
Nkosi Matole. How did that shape his upbringing?
I think that's when now his relationship with the Princess Makoko grew stronger. You remember when he was doing his articles, on law at the University of Natal, today UKZN. They say the Princess Makoko had overheard that Inkosi is no longer interested in becoming Inkosi. So she had to sell cows, and Inkosi Albert Chul also influenced him. No, you need to take over your throne. So it's been an amazing journey watching Umntwana kaPindangene's life.
And I wonder then, for you as someone who has worked with him closely as well in some aspects, how do you remember him? How will you remember him?
I will remember him as a man who did as a good man who did a bad man's job. He was supposed to be a musician for me, not a politician. Because when you sit down with him, such a beautiful soul, overcaring, sometimes he would just send me an emoji on WhatsApp, smiling, so he was a very, I remember we invited him together with Playhouse in December the 9th. So we were honoring Princess Makoko. That was a project by Playhouse.
Yeah.
And then an electricity went off and all the generators were not working.
Yeah.
Then he was asked to, vacate Menilokuzane theater. And then he said, "This is my child on stage, I'm not leaving." That is on video.
Yeah.